Welcome back, Rebel fans. You're listening to another episode of the Rebel Talk presented by the Rebel Walk. I'm Cam Wicker, and as always, I'm here with,
Zach Morath.
and we're back with another podcast, second of the week. Didn't really do any type of keys to the game or a prediction from that last podcast, so we thought we'd give you a little short one here before the game on Saturday. And Zach and I will break down just what we think Ole Miss has to do to win and prevent South Carolina from coming out victorious in that road matchup they have on Saturday. If you want to start it off, Zach, you can start off with your keys to the game.
Yeah, Cam. So, the first thing you got to address, Williams-Brice, Willie B Stadium, it's sold out, 75,000 plus fans who really are not too thrilled with the whole Juice Wells situation. For those who don't know, Juice Wells got injured at South Carolina last year, and fans thought he could have came back to play, but he never did. We don't know if he was resting or just sitting because South Carolina wasn't great. I don't know. Whatever the case, Juice Wells is playing for Ole Miss this year, and fans are they don't like Juice. The energy is going to be there, and right out of the gate, Ole Miss will get the ball because you can imply that South Carolina is going to defer on Ole Miss is going to want the ball like they always do. I think that first drive is going to be telling, Cam. I know Ole Miss usually scores there, and if you're in a situation where crowd noise is becoming a problem, we're throwing screen passes and doing QB draws up the middle for 3 yards, and you have to punt, and then South Carolina gets the ball. I don't like that. So even if it's a field goal, I think you really have to go down and get some points on the board on that script drive, especially because that's usually the most successful drive of the game for Ole Miss. My second thing here, Cam, got to get the balls to the tight ends between Caden Prieskorn and Daquan Wright. None of them have had more than 2 targets since Middle Tennessee. Actually, Daquan hasn't had more than 2 targets all season, which I'll never understand. All preseason, all through fall camp, we're hearing about, this could be the best tight end duo in the country. Prieskorn, he is an NFL player. He's got the size. He has the talent. And they're simply not getting the ball. It's mind-boggling. And if Lane doesn't figure out a way to spread out this offense and, get quick passes out to guys like Jordan Watkins and Caden Lee, and especially the tight ends, it's going to be a long day for Jackson. He's going to do a lot of running around like he did against Kentucky. He may take a couple sacks. South Carolina has 2 of the best edge rushers in the country between Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart, both combining for about 250 pounds, around 6'5", 6'6", really lengthy. So that leads me into my third key. Pass protection is going to be crucial, Cam. Again, Jackson, it was clear that he needs a little more time to throw the ball. And though this isn't the Kentucky D-line and they're not as strong on the interior, like I said, those edge rushers are as premier as anyone in the nation. So how much time does Jackson have to make his decision? Can he even go through his progressions? And if he can't, you have to adapt to that, Cam. Kind of like last year against Penn State. We saw that first drive. It was god awful. Jackson Dart was getting blown up. I was like, wow, this is going to be another Georgia game. But the offense seemed to adjust. They got the ball out of their hands quickly. A lot of slants, a lot good schemes to get guys open. And we didn't see that against Kentucky. So how can Charlie West Jr. and Lane Kiffin adapt throughout the game? And then finally is establishing the run game, Cam. They say it all the time. When you're on the road, you pack your defense and you pack your run game. Absolutely. If you can't pack your run game on the road at South Carolina, it is going to be a problem. Quick stat from my boy TJ. Shout out TJ Oxley from the Rebel Walk. On the year, Ole Miss has had 38 runs outside the tackles with an average of 6.8 yards per carry. Ole Miss ran outside the tackles 4 times against Kentucky. If TJ can find this stat, I promise you the coaches can. So I'd love to see some runs outside the tackles. And, hey, maybe 24 gets the ball a little bit. We've seen some players posting about Ulysses Bentley. We've seen Henry Parrish and Matt Jones pop up on the injury report. So I honestly do believe we're going to see Ulysses Bentley appearance. I'm hoping that happens for the sake of the fan base. Even if he's not full strength, even if he's not up to speed, you have to try something new. That's literally the definition of insanity if Lane Kiffin doesn't. So hopefully Bentley gets involved. You have to establish this run game and, let's get this offense going. That's all I got,
Absolutely.
Cam.
Great insight there. I wanted to add to you talked about Wright and Prieskorn. I believe on the year they have 14 combined catches on the year. Right now, I think Prieskorn has 10. Wright has 4. I wanted to talk a little bit about that Kentucky pass rush too. You mentioned the edge rushers going to be a problem for Ole Miss in that game. Kennard and Smith. It should be Not less to worry about in the interior than you had against Kentucky. You know, having Deion Walker in there for Kentucky was a different type of feel
Yeah.
for Dart in that presence. But obviously South Carolina doesn't have a guy of that size. But I would like to point out the South Carolina linebackers, bigger than most linebackers in the SEC. All those guys are around 6 foot plus, 240 pounds, really beefy run stopping guys, and that's another thing. That you said, establishing the run. That was actually at the top of my list on the keys to the game. Establishing that run early. You talked about it. Maybe we see Bentley in this game. A lot of people have been trying to hint towards that this week. Even players on the team are posting him on social media. You mentioned Matt Jones being on the injury report. We know Parrish has been banged up these past couple of weeks. But I'd also like for Ole Miss to maybe even use Dominique Thomas, maybe Rashad Amos. Use those guys that you went out and got in the portal. You went and got those guys for a reason. You went to got those guys to provide depth. So, I mean, if you're not going to have a premier back like you had last year with Quinshon Judkins, why not let the other guys get some work? Why not let the guys like Amos, let the guys like Thomas get 5 carries a game, even 3 carries a game maybe. You can give the 10-plus carries a game to a guy like Parrish, but you want to give other guys like that a chance to get out there, especially when Parrish is not really just a workhorse back. Another thing that you mentioned a lot too, using weapons outside of Trey Harris. Juice Wells is going to be a big key in this game. The fans are going to boo him right coming out the tunnel. They're going to boo him as soon as he enters a place where he is seen by South Carolina fans. He will be booed. So getting the ball to Juice Wells should be key in this game. Getting the ball to someone outside of Trey Harris and not making this offense too one-dimensional. I feel like last week this offense became one-dimensional in the fact that there wasn't really anybody getting the ball outside of Trey Harris at points. I mean, late in the game, you have a pass downfield to Prieskorn that you throw it to Caden Lee a couple times, you throw it to Parrish a couple times. But most of Dart's completions in that game last week came from Trey Harris, pretty much slant routes or just a screen route. Trey Harris would do the rest of the work for him. So I would really like to see this Ole Miss offense open the playbook more. That was actually my next one, opening the playbook. It seems like we've talked about it, Zach. It seemed like last week was a bit like that Alabama game last year. A lot of QB draws, just design plays to Trey Harris every other play, which get Trey Harris the ball. He's one of the best receivers in the country, but there's got to be other plays in the playbook that you're getting Trey Harris the ball to. And it's about that time of year where you're going to have to start showing something else other than the same 4 to 5 plays every couple of series. Another thing I wanted to say, going on to the defensive side of the ball, take advantage of Norris Sellers missing these previous weeks. He went down in that LSU game, and he hasn't played a snap since. What is Sellers going to look like? We don't know. Ashford looked pretty good in that win they had, I believe it was Akron, but it was against Akron. He didn't look great against in the ending of the game against LSU. I believe they didn't throw the ball at all in the third quarter with Ashford out there. So we'll have to see what this South Carolina offense looks like again with Sellers coming back after missing a couple weeks. I think South Carolina had a bye week. Was it last week or the week before last?
Yeah, last week.
Yeah, so Sellers obviously has had that break to get his body ready. Probably didn't practice much this week. I would assume a guy like Sellers, I think he's like 240 pounds. You're going to see a lot of quarterback design runs at that Ole Miss defensive line to try to wear him down and then play action over the top. So you're going to have to find a way to take advantage of Norris Sellers. Another thing with that, the quarterback spot, we've seen it last year work at times against Jalen Milroe in that game with Perkins. If Perkins can't be that guy because he's on the edge this game, why not throw a guy out like Poopaw or TJ Dottery that can spy the quarterback at all times? Maybe not Poopaw because you kind of want to let Poopaw go loose a lot of the times and get after the quarterback. But TJ Dottery, we know he has the headset communication in his ear all the time. Seems like a really smart player. Seems like a guy you can trust at that QB spy spot. And a guy like Sellers, later on down the road, you play a guy like Taylor Green, you're going to need a quarterback spy in these games. Leading on to that Perkins comment, Perkins and Princely, I want to see those guys get let loose this week. It seemed like last week Perkins did get let loose, and you've seen the type of plays he was making last week. Perkins has taken a tremendous leap from last year to this year. I don't know if it was the transition to playing edge more than linebacker, but it seems like Perkins kind of found a home right there on the edge, just being able to get after the quarterback and not worry about anything else. Princely, you've seen what he's able to do these past couple of weeks. I really want to see a type of game where Princely's just getting after the quarterback every play. And then lastly, the DBs have kind of been struggling a little bit for the Ole Miss defense. I guess the only part of the Ole Miss defense has kind of really been struggling as of late. And a lot of that has to do with the Ole Miss defense playing man to man for a majority of the game. Now you're blitzing for a lot of the game, so you have to man up a lot of those times. But I would like to see the Ole Miss defense kind of let those DBs get in the zone a little bit, getting some zone coverages, let them find a comfort zone. These are going to be big, physical South Carolina receivers. I believe Nick Harbor's like 6'5", 240, and he runs like Tyreek Hill. I think he's like a 4.3 40 or something like that. So these are going to be big physical guys that these DBs are going against. Ole Miss, hate to say it, but they don't have really big DBs. We have Trey Amos about 6'1", 6'2", 180 pounds, but outside of those guys, not really huge DBs on the Ole Miss side of the ball. So I kind of want to see these guys playing less man-to-man, kind of let them find a zone to just sit in and see if you can stop those crossing routes that we saw Kentucky just torching Ole Miss with last week.
100%, Cam. And adding to that point, South Carolina, they don't have that standout wide receiver like Kentucky has, Dane Key, this year. They spread the ball a lot. So you can expect a lot of those crossing routes, misdirection routes, a complex scheme from Shane Beamer, I would imagine, especially knowing what's up front for this Ole Miss defensive line. Like you said, Perkins is going to be a huge player in this game, whether he's spying or playing edge or they put him back at linebacker. He's going to have to be on his feet going to tackle Robbie Ashford, who you can imagine South Carolina is going to use at some points. He's one of the fastest quarterbacks in the country. And at the same time, Sellers, you can imagine he'll play, but like Cam said, it's his first game back since LSU. I think that's about 3 weeks. And, you want to make him throw. He doesn't have the most accurate ball. So you want to keep him in the pocket, force him to throw the ball while applying some pressure on him. I think good things are going to happen, Cam. And again, let's put as much pressure as we can. Keep Perkins all over these guys. They can both run. They're both mobile. But I think this Ole Miss defense is going to stand up and, continue to do their part like they did against Kentucky.
Absolutely. Ole Miss opened up this game as a 9-point favorite. I think it went up to 10.5 at one point. My prediction for this game, I got Ole Miss 31, South Carolina 23. My prediction that I sent in that you'll see later in the article this week, I had Jackson Dart bouncing back from last week, having about a 300-yard game, 300-yard game, and probably 2 touchdowns total plus. We'll see what kind of week Dart has, just responding to a week that really wasn't great for him.
Exactly, Cam. And, looking at last year, Dart, there were times when obviously we played Alabama and Georgia on the road, very difficult teams. But, against Auburn, he did a fantastic job. Against State, it wasn't the best performance, but it was a gritty game just to, get enough for Ole Miss to win. And that's what I'm looking for this week. So give me the Rebels 27-24. Again, this is as must-win as must-wins get. Again, if you lose this game, you're looking at a possibility that I can't even think about as a fan. I'll be in Columbia covering media, so be sure to stay tuned to my Twitter along with the Rebel Walk throughout the rest of the week. And again, my prediction, I got Ole Miss 27-24, and I think Juice Wells is going to get the first touchdown. I think Lane, you guys know how Lane, and he's a troll. I think they are scripting that drive up, first pass in the end zone, slant route, whatever it may be. I think number 3 is going to end up with the ball in his hands.
Absolutely. Speaking of, you mentioned Lane Kiffin being a troll. Just speaking of that, I believe we talked about it in our group chat a little while ago today. Kiffin hasn't tweeted in the past couple of days. Very surprising. Not hearing from Lane Kiffin on Twitter. So
maybe that
means that the Rebels are locked in.
Right. That's kind of my prediction, Cam. But again, we'll see, guys. We'll see.
We'll see. So we got 2:30 kickoff on ESPN. That'll be 2:30 Central Time. I believe on the East Coast, that'll be 3:30 if you're out there on the East Coast. But it'll be 2:30 Central Time for the guys watching in Oxford on ESPN. I believe that's all we got for you for the football. I wanted to update a little bit on just some other sports. Basketball will be starting October 27th. Exhibition game against Illinois. I believe that game will be televised now. I'm not sure. I think I heard something like that game being televised now. I'll have to look more into that. But also the scrimmage game for baseball this week, they play North Alabama on Saturday. I believe it's later that day after the game for Ole Miss. So if you're in Oxford, you want to go watch some Ole Miss baseball. A lot of new faces on that baseball team to go watch for. I believe that's all we got for you guys this week, though. Make sure to tune in to therebelwalk.com for all your Ole Miss sports needs.